Other than former President Donald Trump, Joe Biden actually has two other competitors who might just end up taking him down, but if you listen to the major media news sources, you probably wouldn't even know that. Now, their names are Robert Kennedy Jr. and Marianne Williamson. And recently, Robert Kennedy Jr. actually came out and said that the DNC is trying to rig their elections to make sure that him nor Marianne Williamson really have a shot at defeating Joe Biden, that the DNC already has their pick, that they want Joe Biden to win, that he's their candidate already. And you know, if you polled a lot of Americans, they would say this is pretty foolish, because even though Joe Biden is the current president, why shouldn't he have to run against other Democrats to decide who is the best candidate for their party? If you're a Democratic voter and you're registered as a Democrat voter, most Democrats would agree that Joe Biden is not the best candidate that they could have. He is deeply unpopular within the party. If you poll Democrats or independent-leaning Democrats, 67% of them said they would rather have another president run in 2024 than Joe Biden. So we're going to be playing this interview by Robert Kennedy Jr., where he's saying that the DNC is rigging this election to ensure that Joe Biden wins and that none of these other candidates really have a chance. So we're going to play this video, and let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below.
You know, I mean, how are you managing this process? You know, what's your plan? And what do you think New Hampshire is ultimately going to do? Are they going to have a primary on January 23rd is one date that we're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, the DNC has been very public, although its charter requires it to be neutral in presidential campaigns. It's been very open about the fact that it has its candidate. It does not. It's irritated that it has to have a primary season at all. In fact, they're talking about actually trying to make me and Marianne Williamson pay for the primaries because they consider it an unnecessary process. But they've already also gone to this, and they're going to vote on these new proposals on September 14th, so next week, a whole series of new proposals that will disenfranchise the voters in certain states that voted against, in all the states that voted against President Biden the last time around. So as you pointed out, he came out, I think, fourth in New Hampshire and fourth in Iowa. So those primaries have essentially been kicked out of the process. The DNC has ordered New Hampshire to switch its primary date to later on in the season, but New Hampshire, the Democratic Party in New Hampshire has no control over that. It's a state law. It's part of their constitution. They cannot change it. So they basically, the White House has made a decision, we are just going to disenfranchise them. Not only that, they're considering a new proposal. So if I go into New Hampshire and I go into Iowa, which I have, if I set foot in the state, they now have a rule that no voter who votes for me in the state, that their vote will be counted. Any delegate that I win will go to President Biden instead. They're trying to now change the rules to make it even broader by saying that any candidate, which is me, that goes into New Hampshire, that any vote that they get in Georgia will not be counted, and any delegate they win in Georgia will not be counted. They've also they've provided for President Biden this giant loophole, which allows him to raise $750,000 per donor when I am restricted under the FEC rules to $6,600. And in that way, they've raised almost, my understanding is that they now have about $2 billion. But they've used a lot of other machinations to make sure that nobody can run against the president. This obviously sounds extremely
unfair, and it also is getting weird because now you have people like Jim Carville and others who are sort of appear to be hankering around for another candidate or suggesting the potential that maybe Joe Biden, with terrible poll numbers, should not be the candidate. And yet it's almost as if in the Democrat hierarchy, based on everything you're saying and the things that are spoken about in the media, it's like they don't think you exist. Watch this from The View just yesterday. Watch this.
The Republican campaigns are sucking up all of the oxygen because there is an actual primary, whereas the Democrats don't have one. Yeah. Republican candidates are spending.
Should have one? The Democrats?
No, because there's nobody running against Biden. So I mean, so who is he going to?
I guess the question is,
who's
do
he
you
going
think
to
people should
debate
run
with?
against
You
him?
know, Casper the Friendly Ghost.
I mean, what do you think when you hear this conversation?
It is, it's surreal. My polling numbers are better than Ron DeSantis and or any other candidate except for Biden and Trump. But I'm, you know, even when they talk about me on the DNC channels on CNN and MSNBC, they always refer to me. My first name is long shot candidate, whereas everybody else has a candidacy that is taken seriously.
And that's when they're being nice.
I'm not allowed. In fact, I'm not allowed on CNN or MSNBC at all, and all of the Republican candidates can go on there. Jake Tapper has said publicly that he will not do a town hall for me, even though he's done them with Nikki Haley and with Ron DeSantis. So it's surreal.
Yeah. It's remarkable, especially when you look at some of this polling, because CNN's own poll, speaking of CNN, shows that 67% of Democrats say that they want another candidate. And in fact, 82% of that number say they don't even care who it is. They just want it to be someone other than Joe Biden. So there you are, you know, sort of waving your arms going, hey, what about me? And they refuse to talk to you. You say that they call you long shot. When they don't call you long shot, they call you conspiracy theorists. So, you know, there appears to be a very coordinated effort against your candidacy. So how do you break through that? I mean, what's your strategy? How do you break through that?
Well, I mean, the way I break through it is what I'm doing. As I said, my favorability numbers are now better, far better than President Trump's or President Biden's. So the strategy that we're employing is actually working, and that is to do a lot of long-form interviews on podcasts, to come on this network, which does allow me on. You guys have been very, very generous. And to go anywhere that I can and talk to people. And you know, when I talk to Democrats, we have a huge conversion rate. So I think their only strategy is to make sure that Democrats don't hear me talk, don't hear that I'm not actually anti-vax, and that, the other things they say about me are not actually true.
All right. So you are in South Carolina. You said you're going to a football game. You're holding a rally there. I know you feel that you can have a strong showing in South Carolina as well. It'll be very interesting to see what they decide to do in New Hampshire. And I suppose there's a possibility that you could be on the ballot. And Marianne Williamson, I assume, would also be on that ballot. But Joe Biden would not be on that ballot. So I need a quick answer, sir, if you can. But is that your hope that, if that's the situation, you can go out of New Hampshire and say, I won New Hampshire?
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer it. The whole thing stinks. He should be on the ballot. We should all be on the ballot. I don't want a fixed election. Everybody in this country believes the system is rigged, and this process is kind of confirming it for them, which is sad.
Okay. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., sir, thank you very much. Always good to talk to you. We'll talk soon. Have a good visit in South Carolina.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.